Hello, and welcome back to Storytime with Ari. Tonight we are on our final reading of the Phantom Tollbooth. So we've been reading the Phantom Tollbooth this past couple weeks, however long it's taken me to get through it because I don't read every day. But it seems like everyone's gotten into the story, so tonight we just have the last couple chapters. I had to go pee, and then I had to get a Kong for the dog. I went pee, and then I had to get a Kong for the doggy, so she's eating her Kong. So yes, I have some yummy cocoa to sip while we read our story. I'm gonna take my phone off of this tripod and put it on this one because it's easier for me when I'm reading. This one has my light attached to it, and then I can turn down then I can turn down my overhead lights and set a vibe, a nice little vibe in here. I can get my lamp. Welcome back in, Christine. Welcome, Butterfly. Welcome, Courtney. Welcome, everybody, to Ari Storytime. Do you guys really like this series? Because I can pick new books and stuff and continue just reading little chapter books. We read a couple of chapters a night because I do have a couple more that I think you guys might like. Oh, sorry, my back hurts from shoveling. Let's grab a Tylenol for a sec. I'm also still sick, so. Hold on a minute, guys. Where is I have the Tylenol, but I want it in the Croxon too. I don't know where that one is. Oh, is that it? There we go. Tylenol and naproxen. There we go. See, now I have my light, but I get to turn down my overhead lights. We get our nice little book out, the Phantom Tollbooth. I like what I heard, Rhyme and Reason. Yes, Rhyme and Reason are the princesses that they're going to rescue. So they should be getting rescued soon, hopefully. Alright, let's take my Tylenol, then we can start reading. Woo! I hate shoveling. I do Tylenol and naproxen. Tylenol is for the cold symptoms right now, and naproxen is for my pain symptoms. So it's an anti-inflammatory. Oh. That's actually a tip my doctor told me to mix them. If you take don't do this on my behalf, talk to your doctor, but my doctor at least gave me the advice to take Tylenol and Motrin if one or the other isn't helping, to combine them. No, it's an NSAID. It doesn't make you loopy. It's just an anti-inflammatory. It's not like a narcotic or anything. It's like ibuprofen, but longer lasting. And plus, ibuprofen bothers my stomach, so they send naproxen a little less likely to bother you if you have ulcers and stuff. Okay, hold on. Just getting my nose all drip dried. Okay, so I'm trying to remember where I think we left off at chapter 17. I was out of it the last time that I read, so wasn't exactly sure where I left off. Might reread the previous chapter because I was completely out of it. let's see. Castle in the air. Oh, okay, yeah, there was this guy. The guy who was the dirty bird. Do you guys remember the dirty bird? I do remember where we left off. There was the dirty bird and the guy, yeah. It was the dirty bird. I think it was after chapter 17. So remember there was the little guy who makes them, the crazy guy who looks like Slender Man? And he was making them move pebble to pebble. He was like making them move pebbles with tweezers and... Let's see. Yeah, okay, and then they went and chased him. The terrible trivium. Oh, yeah, and then there was this little guy. They went running from the... Yeah, they went running from the creepy invisible looking man. And then they ran into him. Who was like pretending to be scarier than he was. He was like, I'm a big scary monster. What did he call himself here? He calls himself the, I'm the long-nosed, green-eyed, curly-haired, wide-mouthed, thick-necked, broad-shouldered, round-bodied, short-armed, bow-legged, big-footed monster. And if I do say so myself, one of the most frightening fiends in the whole wide wilderness. With me here, you wouldn't dare try to escape. And with that, he shuffled to the edge of the pit and leered down at his helpless prisoners. Talkin' the humbug turned away in fright, but Milo, who had learned by now that people are not always what they say they are, he reached for his telescope and took a long look for himself. And there, at the rim of the hole, instead of what he'd expected, stood a small furry creature, with very worried eyes, and a rather sheepish grin. Why, you're not a long-nosed, green-eyed, curly-haired, wide-mouthed, thick-necked, broad-shouldered, round-bodied, short-armed, bow-legged, or big-footed. And you're not at all frightening, said Milo indignantly. What kind of a demon are you? Jesus John says, book reading. Now this is pretty chill. Yeah, we have fun. So then he says, I'm the demon of insincerity. I don't mean what I say, I don't mean what I do, and I don't mean what I am. Most people who believe what I tell them go the wrong way and stay there. But you and your awful telescope spoiled everything. I'm going home. And then, crying hysterically, he stamped off in a huff. So we read that part. And then they got stuck in the hole. Oh, they figured out their way out of the hole. We're kind of recapping what happened in the last chapters, because we read this part already. So we're getting kind of close to the end. If for people who haven't caught up with the story, if you go back on my channel, if you're interested, we've been reading this for the past few streams. So if you look on my channel, all the ones that have this story are called the Phantom Tollbooth, and it'll have the same thumbnail that I have on this. I think one of them starts later in the stream, so you'll have to skip towards the end to get to the story, but most of them are just the story. So if people want to hear the rest of it that they missed, if people are just coming in now, if you hear this end and like it, you can go back and listen to the rest of the story. We're just doing a little recap before I get to where we were, just of the previous chapter. So they were getting out of the hole that they stuck in, that the little furry monster was looking down at them. And then, let's see, when they got out of the hole, they stepped right into it with the hands of a big scary giant. Remember, they stepped right into the giant's hand because he looked just like the mountain. So, let's see. So the giant says, I'm afraid of everything. That's why I'm so ferocious. If the others found out, I'd just die. Now do be quiet while I eat my breakfast. He raised his hands towards his gaping mouth, and the humbug shut his eyes tightly and clasped both his hands over his head. Then aren't you really a fearful demon? Milo asked desperately, on the assumption that the giant had been brought up well enough not to talk with a mouthful. Well, approximately yes, he replied, lowering his arm to the vast relief of the bug. That is, comparatively, no. What I mean is, relatively, maybe? In other words, roughly, perhaps. What does everyone else think? There, you see, he said peevishly. I'm even afraid to make a positive statement, so please stop asking questions before I lose my appetite altogether. Then he raised his arm again and prepared to swallow the three of them in one gulp. Why don't you help us rescue Rhyme and Reason? Then maybe things will get better, shouted Milo again. This time almost too late, for in another instant they would have all been gone. Oh, I wouldn't do that, said the giant thoughtfully, lowering his arm once again. I mean, why not leave well enough alone? That is, it'll never work. I mean, I wouldn't take a chance. In other words, let's keep things the way they are. Changes are so frightening. As he spoke, he began to look a bit ill. Maybe I'll just eat one of you, he remarked unhappily, and save the rest for later. I don't feel very well. I have a better idea, said Milo. You do? Interrupted the giant, losing any desire to eat at all. If it's one thing I can't swallow, it's ideas. They're so hard to digest. I have a box full of ideas, of all the ideas in the world, said Milo proudly, holding up the gift King Azaz had given him. The thought of it terrified the giant, who began to shake like an enormous pudding. Who's spamming? The Mush Mountain. Who's spamming? Are hangers a metal detector? What? I'm so weird. Oh, yeah, we're not gonna give my location. We're in the United States. That's all you need to know. Oh, hold on. I don't think I'm like tired yawning. I think it's just from expending the energy. I think my oxygen is just catching up from shoveling. Because I don't feel sleepy. All right, give me a second. Hi, animal lover. Oh, okay. Okay, the thought of it terrified the giant, who began to shake like an enormous pudding. Put me down and just go away, he pleaded, forgetting for a moment who had a hold of whom. And please don't open that box. In another moment, he'd set them down on the next jagged peak, and with panic in his eyes, he lumbered off to warn the others of this terrible new threat. But news travels quickly. The word snatcher, the trivium, and the long-nosed, green-eyed, curly-haired, wide-mouthed, thick-necked, broad-shouldered, round-bodied, short-armed, bow-legged, Bigfoot monster had already spread the alarm throughout the evil, unenlightened mountains. And out the demons came, from every cave and crevice, through every fissure and crack, from under the rocks and up from the mud, stomping and shuffling, slithering and sliding, through the murky shadows. And all had only one thought in mind: destroy the intruders and protect ignorance. From where they stood, Milo, Talk, and the humbug could see them all moving steadily forward. Still far away, but coming quickly. On all sides, the cliffs were alive with this evil collection of crawling, looming, creeping, lurching shapes. Some could be seen plainly, others were but dim silhouettes, and yet still more, only now beginning to stir from their foul places, would be along much sooner than they were wanted. Yes, we're reading a story. We're having story time, everybody. Oh, sorry, my notifications sometimes go off on my phone, so. Oh, okay, sorry. Only now to stir from their foul places, and would be along much sooner than they were wanted. We'd better hurry, barked Talk, or they're sure to catch us. And he started up the trail again. Milo took one deep breath and did the same, and the bug, now that he knew what lay behind, he ran ahead with renewed enthusiasm. Okay, chapter 18, The Castle in the Air. Oh. Higher and higher they climbed in search of the castle and the two banished princesses. From one crest to the next, from jagged rock to jagged rock, up frightful crumbling cliffs and along desperately narrow ledges where a single misstep meant only goodbye, an ominous silence dropped like a curtain around them. And except for the scuffling of their frantic footsteps, there wasn't a sound. The world that Milo knew was a million thoughts away, and the demons were there in the distance. "They're gaining!" shouted the humbug, wishing he'd never looked back. "But there it is!" cried Milo at the same instant, for straight ahead, climbing up from atop the highest peak, was a spidery spiral stair, and at the other end stood the castle in the air. I see it," said the happy bug, as they struggled up the twisting mountain trail. But what he didn't see was that curled up right in front of the first step was a little round man in a frock coat, sleeping peacefully on a very large and well-worn ledger. That made you jump. Yeah, sorry, my notifications sometimes go off because I have to keep the volume unmuted on my phone for you guys to hear, but then all my notifications go off on my phone. It doesn't happen too often, but I don't know, occasionally I get little notifications that come in, so apologies for that. Oh, I don't know why I keep yawning. Jesus. Okay. The little man in a frock coat sleeping peacefully on a large and very well-worn ledger. A long quill pen sat precariously behind his ear, and there were ink stains all over his hands and face as well as his clothing. He wore a pair of the thickest eyeglasses that Milo had ever seen. "Be very careful," whispered Talk when they'd finally reached the top, and the humbug stepped gingerly around and started up the stairs. "Names," the little man called out briskly, just as the startled bug reached the first step. He sat up quickly, pulled the book out from under him, put on a green eye shade, and waited with his pen poised in the air. "Well, stammered the bug. "Names," he cried again. And as he did, he opened the book to page 512 and began to write furiously. The quill made horrible scratching noises, and the point which was continually catching the paper flicked tiny ink blots all over him. As they called out their names, he noted them carefully in alphabetical order. "Splendid, splendid, splendid," he muttered to himself. "I haven't had an M in ages." "What do you want our names for?" asked Milo, looking anxiously over his shoulder. "We're in a bit of a hurry." "Oh, this won't take a minute," the man assured them. "I'm the official census taker, and I must have some information before I can take your senses." It's spelled senses. Oh, you're not going to be able to see it that way. Like SENSES, like instead of a census, like when they take your census, when they get your info and stuff. But his is spelled senses, like your senses, your eyes, like seeing, hearing. So he's the census taker. "Oh, I must have some information before I can take your senses. Now, if you'll just tell me where you were born, when you were born, where you were born, why you were born, how old you are now, how old you were then, how old you'll be in a little while, your mother's name, your father's name, your aunt's name, your uncle's name, your cousin's name, where you live, how long you've lived there, the schools you've attended, the schools you haven't attended, your hobbies, your telephone number, your shoe size, shirt size, collar size, hat size, and all the names and addresses of 6 people who can verify all of this information. We'll get started. One at a time, please. Stand in line, and no pushing, no talking, no peeking." The humbug, who had difficulty remembering anything, went first. The little man leisurely recorded each answer in 5 different places, pausing often to polish his glasses, clear his throat, straighten his tie, and blow his nose. He managed also to cover the distressed bug from head to foot in ink. "Next," he shouted, Next, he announced very officially. "I do wish he'd hurry," said Milo, stepping forward. I said shouted because it was in capitals, so it just kind of felt like it was shouting. "I do wish he'd hurry," said Milo, stepping forward, for in the distance he could see the first of the demons already beginning to scale the mountain towards them, no more than a few minutes away. The little man wrote with painful deliberation, finally finished with both Milo and Talk, and looked up happily. May we go now? Asked the dog, whose sensitive nose had picked up a loathsome evil smell that grew stronger every second. By all means, said the man agreeably, just as soon as you finish telling me your height, your weight, the number of books you read each year, the number of books you don't read each year, the amount of time you spend eating, playing, working, and sleeping every day, where you go on vacations, how many ice cream cones you eat in a week, how far it is from your house to the barber shop, and which is your favorite color. Then, after that, please fill out these forms and applications, 3 copies of each, and be careful, for if you make one mistake, you'll have to do them all over again. Oh dear, said Milo, looking at the pile of papers. We'll never finish these. And even as he spoke, the demons swarmed stealthily up the mountains. Come, come, said the census taker, chuckling gaily to himself. Don't take all day. I'm expecting several more visitors any minute now. Yeah, the demons. The demons are coming. They set to work feverishly on the difficult forms, and when they'd finished, Milo placed them all in the little man's lap. He thanked them politely, took off his eye shade, put the pen behind his ear, closed the book, and went back to sleep. The humbug took one horrified look back over his shoulders and quickly started up the stairs. Destination, shouted the census taker, sitting up again, putting on his eye shade, taking the pen from behind his ear and opening his book. But I thought, protested the astonished bug. Destination, he repeated, making several notations in the ledger. The castle in the air, said Milo impatiently. Why bother, said the census taker, pointing into the distance. I'm sure you'd rather see what I have to show you. As he spoke, they all looked up, but only Milo could see the gay and exciting circus there on the horizon. There were tents and sideshows and rides and even wild animals. Everything a little boy could spend hours watching. And wouldn't you enjoy a more pleasant aroma? He said, turning to talk. Almost immediately, the dog smelled a wonderful smell that no one but he could smell. It was made up of all the marvelous things that had ever delighted his curious little nose. Is Courtney falling asleep? And here's something I know you'll enjoy hearing, he assured the bug. The bug listened with rapt attention to something he alone could hear, the shouts and applause of an enormous crowd, all cheering for him. They each stood as if in a trance, looking, smelling, and listening to the very special things that the census taker had provided for them, forgetting completely about where they were going and who, with evil intent, was coming up behind them. The census taker sat back with a satisfied smile on his puffy little face as the demons came closer and closer, until less than a minute separated them from their helpless victims. But Milo was too engrossed in the circus to notice, and Talk had closed his eyes, the better to smell, and the bug, bowing and waving, stood with a look of sheer bliss on his face, interested only in the wild ovation. The little man had done his work well, and except for some ominous crawling noises just below the crest of the mountain, everything was silent again. Milo, who stood staring blankly into the distance, let his bag of gifts slip from his shoulder to the ground, and as he did, the package of sounds broke open, filling the air with peals of happy laughter, which seemed so gay that first he, then Talk, and finally the humbug joined in, and suddenly the spell was broken. But I'm not sleeping. There is no circus, cried Milo, realizing he'd been tricked. There were no smells, barked Talk, his alarm now ringing furiously. The applause is gone, complained the disappointed humbug. I warned you, I was the census taker, sneered the census taker. I help people find what they're not looking for, hear what they're not listening for, and run after what they're not chasing, and smell what isn't even there. And furthermore, he cackled, hopping around gleefully on his stubby little legs, I'll steal your sense of purpose, steal your sense of duty, destroy your sense of proportion, and but for one thing, you'd be helpless yet. What's that? Asked Milo fearfully. As long as you have the sound of laughter, he groaned unhappily. I cannot take your sense of humor, and with it you've got nothing to fear from me. But what about them? Cried the terrified bug, for at that very instant the other demons had reached the top at last and were leaping forward to seize them. They ran for the stairs, bowling over the disconsolate census taker, ledger, ink bottle, eyeshade and all, as they went. The humbug dashed up first, then Talk, and lastly Milo, almost too late, as a scaly arm brushed his shoe. The dangerous stairs danced dizzily in the wind, and the clumsy demons refused to follow, but they howled with rage and fury, swore bloody vengeance, and watched with many pairs of burning eyes as the three small shapes vanished slowly into the clouds. Does anyone want cookies and milk? I don't need cookies and milk. I've got hot cocoa. Which I better finish before it turns cold cocoa. Yeah, let me finish this because it's almost becoming cold cocoa. Oh. I'm really having trouble breathing again, but not even my nose, it's just breathing in general. Oh, okay. Okay, with many pairs of burning eyes as the three small shapes vanished slowly into the clouds. Don't look down, advised Milo as the bug tottered upwards on unsteady legs. Sorry, I'm like burping with my drink. Like a giant corkscrew, the stairway twisted through the darkness, steep and narrow and with no rail to guide them. The wind howled cruelly in an effort to tear them loose, and the fog dragged clammy fingers down their backs. But up the giddy flight they went, each one helping the others, until at last the clouds parted, the darkness fell away, and a glow of golden sun rays warmed their arrival. The castle gate swung open smoothly. They entered the great hall on a rug as soft as a snowdrift, and they stood shyly waiting. I keep having like to burp. Oh, I'm like an air bubble in my lung. Oh. Trying to drink and then read is not good. Okay, the castle gate swung open smoothly. They entered the great hall on a rug as soft as a snowdrift, and they stood shyly waiting. Come right in, please. We've been expecting you, sang out the two sweet voices in unison. At the far end of the hall, a silver curtain parted, and two young women stepped forward. They were dressed in all white and were beautiful beyond compare. One was grave and quiet, with a look of warm understanding in her eyes, and the other seemed gay and joyful. You must be the Princess of Pure Reason, said Milo, bowing to the first. She answered simply, yes, and that was just enough. Then you are Sweet Rhyme, he said with a smile to the other. Her eyes sparkled brightly, and she answered with a laugh as friendly as the mailman's ring. When you know there's a letter for you. We've come to rescue you both, Milo explained very seriously. And the demons are close behind, said the worried humbug, still shaky from his ordeal. And we should leave right away, advised Talk. Oh, they won't dare come up here, said Reason gently, and we'll be down there soon enough. Why not sit for a moment and rest, suggested Rhyme. I'm sure you must be tired. Have you been traveling long? Days, sighed the exhausted dog, curling up on a large downy cushion. Weeks, corrected the bug, flopping into a deep, comfortable armchair, for it did seem that way to him. It has been a long trip, said Milo, climbing into the couch where the princesses sat, but we would have been here much sooner if I hadn't made so many mistakes. I'm afraid it's all my fault. There's the princesses. Milo sitting on the couch with the princesses. Yep, so there's Rhyme and Reason. We finally found Rhyme and Reason. And Milo's upset because he wishes he could have rescued them sooner. He thinks he made so many mistakes trying to get to them that it took them so long. Yeah, he feels bad that he couldn't rescue them sooner. And he feels kind of dumb that he made so many mistakes. So it has been a long trip, said Milo, climbing onto the couch where the princesses sat. But we would have been here much sooner if I hadn't made so many mistakes. I'm afraid it's all my fault. You must never feel badly about making mistakes, explained Reason quietly, as long as you take the trouble to learn from them. For you often learn more by being wrong for the right reasons than you do by being right for the wrong reasons. But there's so much to learn, he said with a thoughtful frown. Yes, that is true, admitted Rhyme. But it's not just learning things that's important. It's learning what to do with what you learn. It's learning what to do with what you learn and learning why you learn things at all that matters. That's just what I mean, exclaimed Milo, as Talk and the exhausted Bug drifted quietly off to sleep. Many of the things I'm supposed to know seem so useless that I can't see the purpose in learning them at all. You may not see it now, said the Princess of Pure Reason, looking knowingly at Milo's puzzled face. But whatever we learn has a purpose, and whatever we do affects everything and everyone else, if even in the tiniest way. Why, when a housefly flaps his wings, a breeze goes around the world. When a speck of dust falls to the ground, the entire planet weighs a little more. And when you stamp your foot, the earth moves slightly off its course. Whenever you laugh, gladness spreads like ripples in a pond, and whenever you're sad, no one anywhere can really be happy. And it's much the same thing with knowledge, for whenever you learn something new, the whole world becomes that much richer. And remember also, said the Princess of Sweet Rhyme, that many places you would like to see are just off the map, and many things you want to know are just out of sight or a little beyond your reach. But someday you'll reach them all. For what you learn today, for no reason at all, will help you discover all the wonderful secrets of tomorrow. I think I understand, Milo said, still full of questions and thoughts. But which is the most important? At that moment, the conversation was interrupted by a far-off chopping noise. With each loud blow, the entire room and everything in it shook and rattled. Down below, on the murky peak, the demons were busy cutting the staircase loose with axes and hammers and saws. Before long, the whole thing collapsed with a tremendous crash, and the startled humbug leaped to his feet just in time to see the castle drifting slowly off into space. We're moving, he shouted, which was a fact that had already become obvious to everyone. I think we had better leave now, said Rhyme softly, and Reason agreed with a nod. But how will we get down? Groaned the humbug, looking at the wreckage below. There's no stairway, and we're sailing higher every minute. Oh, yeah, it's okay if you can't be a member, Hannah. We did just start the memberships. I don't really have much on there right now except for the badges. The only thing on there right now is the badges. It's a nice way to support the channel, but there's not really like many perks right now anyway, so but I appreciate it. No one's obligated to become a member. It's just a little thing you can do to support the channel, and there's eventually going to be some little extras on there. There's only like a couple things right now, so okay, let me get here. Hold on. There's no stairway, and we're sailing higher every minute. Okay, so this is looks like the castle. What is even happening here? The castle is like flying away. And they are just like sailing in the wind. This might be on the next page, whatever happens here, because I haven't seen them like jump out of the castle. I think the castle is just sailing away, but I think they're still in the castle right now, so this must be what happens next. Let's see. Yeah, okay. Well, time flies, doesn't it? Asked Milo. On many occasions, barked Talk, jumping eagerly to his feet. I'll take everyone down. Oh, Talk, because he's the watchdog and time flies. So Talk's gonna help them down. Apparently Talk can fly. They say, "How will we get down?" groaned the humbug, looking at the wreckage below. "There's no stairway, and we're sailing higher every minute." "Well, time flies, doesn't it?" asked Milo. "On many occasions," barked Talk, jumping eagerly to his feet. "I'll take everyone down." "Can you carry us all?" inquired the bug. "For a short distance," said the dog thoughtfully. "The princesses can ride on my back, Milo can catch hold of my tail, and you can hang on to his ankles." "But what of the castle in the air?" the bug objected, not very pleased with this arrangement. "Let it drift away," said Rhyme. "And good riddance," added Reason, "for no matter how beautiful it seems, it's still nothing but a prison." Talk then backed up 3 steps, and with a running start he bounded through the window with all his passengers and began the long glide down. The princesses sat tall and unafraid. Milo held on as tight as he could, and the bug swung crazily like the tail on a kite. Down through the darkness they plunged, to the mountains and the monsters below. Oh, so that was what the picture was Talk. The princesses riding Talk. The princesses are riding Talk down, and then Milo's holding on to his tail, and the humbug is holding on to Milo's ankles. And they're all riding down to the mountain. That's why I like Talk. I remembered there was a reason why I like Talk, because he's the one that rescues them all. He doesn't have he's not like a very vocal character, but he's just kind of like steadily, quietly there all the time. But he's the one that saves them all in the end. They ride his back down. Poor dog. No, he likes to help. Dogs like to be helpful. Chapter 19. The Return of Rhyme and Reason. Sailing past 3 of the tallest peaks and just over the outstretched arms of the grasping demons, they reached the ground and landed with a sudden jolt. "Quick," urged Talk, "follow me. We'll have to run for it." With the princesses still on his back, he galloped down the rocky trail, and not a moment too soon, for pounding down the mountainside, in a cloud of clinging dust and a chorus of chilling shrieks, came all the loathsome creatures who choose to live in ignorance, and who had waited so very impatiently. Thick black clouds hung heavily overhead as they fled through the darkness, and Milo, looking back for just a moment, could see the awful shapes coming closer and closer. Just to the left, and not very far away, were the triple demons of compromise, one tall and thin, one short and fat, and the third exactly like the other 2. As always, they moved in ominous circles, for if one said here, the other said there, and the third agreed perfectly with both of them. And since they always settled their differences by doing what none of them really wanted, they rarely got anywhere at all, and neither did anyone they met. Jumping clumsily from boulder to boulder, and catching hold with his cruel curving claws, was the horrible hopping Hindsight, a most unpleasant fellow, whose eyes were in the rear and whose rear was out in front. He invariably leaped before he looked, and never cared where he was going as long as he knew why he shouldn't have gone to where he'd been. Some of these things are so hard to even read. He invariably leaped before he looked, and never cared where he was going as long as he knew why he shouldn't have gone to where he'd been. And most terrifying of all, directly behind, inching along like giant soft-shelled snails with blazing eyes and wet, anxious mouths, came the Gorgons of Hate and Malice. The Gorgons of Hate and Malice, leaving a trail of slime behind them and moving much more quickly than you'd think. "Faster!" shouted Talk. "They're closing in!" Down from the heights they raced, the humbug with one hand on his hat and the other flailing desperately in the air, Milo running as he had never run before, and the demons just a little bit faster than that. From off on the right, his heavy bulbous body lurching dangerously on the spindly legs which barely supported him, came the overbearing know-it-all, talking continuously, A dismal demon who was mostly mouth, he was ready at a moment's notice to offer misinformation on any subject. And while he often tumbled heavily, it was never he who was hurt, but rather the unfortunate person on whom he fell. Next to him, but just a little bit behind, came the gross exaggeration, whose grotesque features and thoroughly unpleasant manners were hideous to see, and whose rows of wicked teeth were made only to mangle the truth. They hunted together and were bad luck to anyone they caught. Riding along on the back of anyone who'd carry him was the threadbare excuse, a small, pathetic figure whose clothes were worn and tattered, and who mumbled the same things again and again in a low but piercing voice. Well, I've been sick, but the page was torn out. I missed the bus, but no one else did it. Well, I've been sick, but the page was torn out. I missed the bus, but no one else did it. The demon is called the threadbare excuse. If you noticed, all the demons are like just like things of everyday life. Gross exaggerations. What are the demons? Demons of compromise. Gorgons of hate and malice. They're all like things like just like normal things in the world that like things that people go through. Gross exaggeration. He looked, I missed the bus, but no one else did it. He looked quite harmless and friendly, but once he grabbed on, he almost never let go. Closer and closer they came, bumping and jolting each other, clawing and snorting in their eager fury. Talk staggered along bravely with rhyme and reason. Milo's lungs now felt ready to burst as he stumbled down the trail, and the humbug was slowly falling behind. Gradually the path grew broader and more flat as it reached the bottom of the mountain and turned towards wisdom. Ahead lay light and safety, but perhaps just a bit too far away. And down came the demons from everywhere, frenzied creatures of darkness, lurching wildly towards their prey. Sorry, there's all the demons. Like a whole spread of just all the demons kind of closing in on them. So yeah, there's a whole 2-page spread of all the demons kind of closing in. Good night, Hannah. Yeah, I like the style of the pictures too. They're like this interesting, just like pen and ink. It's like a weird little pen and ink style. Yeah, Milo's cool. Talk's still my favorite, but Milo's number 2. I just always like the dog. From off in the rear, the terrible Trivium and the wobbly, gelatinous giant urged them on with glee. And pounding forward with a rush came the ugly Dilemma, snorting steam and looking intently for someone to catch on the ends of his long pointed horns, while his hoofs bit eagerly at the ground. The exhausted humbug swayed and tottered on his rubbery legs, a look of longing on his anguished face. I don't think I can, he gasped as a jagged slash of lightning ripped open the sky, and the thunder stole his words. Closer and closer the demons loomed as the desperate chase neared its end. Then, gathering themselves for one final leap, they prepared to engulf first the bug, then the boy, and lastly the dog and his 2 passengers. They rose as one and suddenly stopped, as if frozen in midair, unable to move, staring ahead in terror. Milo slowly raised his weary head, and there on the horizon, for as far as the eye could see, stood the massed armies of wisdom, the sun glistening from their swords and shields, and their bright banners slapping proudly in the breeze. For a moment everything was silent. Then 1,000 trumpets sounded, then 1,000 more, and like an ocean wave the long line of horsemen advanced, slowly at first, then faster and faster, until, with a gallop and a shout, which was music to Milo's ears, they swept forward toward the horrified demons. So the king and all his men came from the kingdom of wisdom. There's the king, and then all his men on horseback came and drove away the demons. Oh. Animal said, Milo can be my second boyfriend, but Lucky Kitty with the white belly is your first. That's cute. I think Milo would make a good boyfriend for you. He doesn't always understand things too, and he needs things explained. Okay, let's see. For a moment everything was silent, then 1,000 trumpets sounded, then 1,000 more. And like an ocean wave the long line of horsemen advanced, slowly at first, then faster and faster, until with a gallop and a shout, which was music to Milo's ears, they swept forward towards the horrified demons. There in the lead was King Azaz, his dazzling armor embossed with every letter in the alphabet, and with him the math magician, brandishing a freshly sharpened staff. From his tiny wagon, Dr. Discord hurled explosion after explosion, to the delight of the soundkeeper, while the busy din collected them almost at once. And in honor of the occasion, Chroma the Great led his orchestra in a stirring display of patriotic colors. Everyone Milo had met during his journey had come to help. The men of the marketplace, the miners of Digitopolis, and all the good people from the valley and the forest. The spelling bee buzzed excitedly overhead, shouting, Charge! C-H-A-R-G-E! Charge! C-H-A-R-G-E! Canby, who as everyone knew was as cowardly as can be, came all the way from Conclusions to show that he was also as brave. And even Officer Shrift, mounted proudly on a long, low dachshund, galloped grimly along. Cringing with fear, the monsters of ignorance turned in flight, and with anguished cries, too horrible ever to forget, they returned to the damp, dark places from which they came. The humbug sighed with relief, and Milo and the princesses prepared to greet the victorious army. Oh, thank you, Country Living. Thank you so much. Thank you for your support, and I'm glad you guys like the story. Like I said, I might do this more often because it seems like you guys enjoy story time. So, and I love to read. So, even if we don't get like a ton of viewers during story time, it's just like a night stream and whatever. There's not always like a lot of people here, but my main crowd seems to like story time, and I like to read, so I don't mind reading to you guys. Oh, hold on one sec. Okay, where are we? Here we go. The humbug sighed with relief, and Milo and the princesses prepared to greet the victorious army. Well done, stated the Duke of Definition, dismounting and grasping Milo's hand warmly. Fine job, second. Oh, these are the guys who say all the different the kings, the king's court, who they each of them say like the same word but in a different they say like the same thing but with different words. So, well done, stated the Duke of Definition, dismounting and grasping Milo's hand warmly. Fine job, seconded the Minister of Meaning. Good work, added the Count of Connotation. Congratulations, proposed the Earl of Essence. Cheers, recommended the Undersecretary of Understanding. And since that's exactly what everyone felt like doing, that's exactly what everyone did. It's we who should thank, began Milo when the shouting had subsided. But before he could finish, they had unrolled an enormous scroll. And with a fanfare of trumpets and drums, they stated in order that Henceforth, and forthwith, let it be known by all men that rhyme and reason reign once more in wisdom. Oh, I have like this burp stuck in my throat. Whew. Where am I? And the two princesses bowed gratefully and warmly kissed their brothers, and they all agreed that a very fine thing had happened. And furthermore, continued the proclamation, the boy named Milo, the dog known as Talk, and the insect hereinafter referred to as the Humbug are hereby declared to be heroes of the realm. Yes, you can say it, hun. Cheer after cheer filled the air, and even the bug seemed a bit embarrassed at having so much attention paid to him. Therefore, concluded the Duke, in honor of their glorious deed, a royal holiday is declared. Let there be parades through every city in the land, and a gala carnival of 3 days' duration, consisting of jousts, games, feasts, and follies. The 5 cabinet members then rolled up the large parchment, and with many bows and flourishes retired. Swift horsemen carried the news to every corner of the kingdom, and as the parade slowly wound its way through the countryside, crowds of people gathered to cheer it along. Garlands of flowers hung from every house and shop and carpeted the streets. Even the air shimmered with excitement, and shutters closed for many years were thrown open to let the brilliant sunlight shine where it hadn't shone in so long. Milo Talk and the very subdued humbug. I hate when I trip over my words. Milo Talk and the very subdued humbug sat proudly in the royal carriage with Azaz, the mathematician, and the 2 princesses. And the parade stretched for miles in both directions. As the cheering continued, Rhyme leaned forward and touched Milo gently on the arm. "They're shouting for you," she said with a smile. "But I could never have done it," he objected, "without everyone else's help." "That may be true," said Reason gravely, "but you had the courage to try, and what you can do is often simply a matter of what you will do." "That's why," said Azaz, "there was one very important thing about your quest that we couldn't discuss until you returned." "I remember," said Milo eagerly. Why am I tripping on my words so much? "I remember," said Milo eagerly. "Tell me now." "It was impossible," said the king, looking at the mathematician. "Completely impossible," said the mathematician, looking at the king. They didn't tell him it was impossible. "Do you mean," stammered the bug, who suddenly felt a bit faint. "Yes, indeed," they repeated together. "But if we'd told you, then you might not have gone. And as you've discovered, so many things are possible, just as long as you don't know they're impossible." And for the remainder of the ride, Milo didn't utter a sound. They tricked him. Finally, when they'd reached a broad, flat plain midway between Dictionopolis and Digitopolis, somewhat to the right of the Valley of Sound, and a little to the left of the Forest of Sight, the long line of carriages and horsemen stopped, and the great carnival began. Gaily striped tents and pavilions sprang up everywhere, as the workmen scurried about like ants. Within minutes there were race courses and grandstands, sideshows and refreshment booths, gaming fields, Ferris wheels, banners, buntings, and bedlam, almost without pause. The mathematician provided a continuous display of brilliant fireworks made up of exploding numbers which multiplied and divided without breathtaking results. The colors, of course, being supplied by Chroma, and the noise by a deliriously happy Dr. Discord. Thanks to the soundkeeper, there was music and laughter, and for very brief moments, even a little silence. Alec Bings set up an enormous telescope and invited everyone to see the other side of the moon, and the humbug wandered through the crowd, accepting congratulations and recounting in great detail his brave exploits, most of which gained immeasurably in the telling. And each evening, just at sunset, a royal banquet was held. There was everything imaginable to eat. King Azaz had ordered a special supply of delicious words in all flavors, and for those who liked exotic foods, in all languages too. The math magician had provided innumerable platters of division dumplings, which Milo was very careful to avoid. For no matter how many you ate, when you finished, there was more on your plate than when you began. And of course, following the meal came songs, epic poems, and speeches in praise of the princesses and the 3 gallant adventurers who had rescued them. Is your real name Hunter? Who's Hunter? Investigation. I talk the tea, I don't drink it. Oh yeah, I was burping, thank you. Oh, your grandfather. Oh. King Azaz and the math magician pledged that every year at this same time they would lead their armies to the mountains of ignorance until not one demon remained, and everyone agreed that no finer carnival for no finer reason had ever been held in wisdom. But even things as fine as all that must end sometime. And late on the afternoon of the 3rd day, the tents were struck, the pavilions were folded, and everything was packed ready to leave. It's time to go now, said Reason. There is much to do. And as she spoke, Milo suddenly remembered his home. He wanted very much to go back, yet somehow he could not bear the thought of leaving. And so you must say goodbye, said Rhyme, patting him gently on the cheek. To everyone, said Milo unhappily. He looked around slowly at all the friends he'd made, and he looked very hard, so as not to forget any of them for even an instant. But mostly he looked at Talk and the Humbug, with whom he had shared so much. The perils, the dangers, the fears, and best of all, the victory. Never had anyone had 2 more steadfast companions. Oh, I just need a tissue. Never had anyone had 2 more steadfast companions. Can't you both come with me? He asked, knowing the answer as he'd said it. I'm afraid not, old man, replied the bug. I'd like to, but I've arranged a lecture tour which will keep me occupied for years. And they do need a watchdog here, barked Talk sadly. Milo embraced the bug, who, in his most typical fashion, was heard to mumble gruffly, bah, but whose damp eyes told quite a different story. Then the boy threw his arms around Talk's neck and, for just a moment, held on very tightly. Thank you for everything you've taught me, said Milo to everybody as a tear rolled down his cheek. And thank you for what you've taught us, said the king. And as he clapped his hands, the little car was brought forward, polished like new. Milo got in, and with one last look, he started down the road with everyone waving him on. Goodbye, he shouted. Goodbye, I'll be back. Goodbye, shouted Azaz. Always remember the importance of words. And numbers, added the math magician forcefully. Surely you don't think numbers are as important as words, he heard Azaz shout from the distance. Is that so? Replied the math magician, a little more faintly. Why, if... Oh dear, thought Milo. I do hope they don't start it all again. And in a moment they had faded from sight as the road dipped, turned, and headed for home. That's how this whole war started to begin with, was the 2 brothers arguing about words or numbers, which is better. So as soon as they got back together, they started arguing again. It's kind of funny. Chapter 20. I think this is the last chapter. Goodbye and hello. As the pleasant countryside flashed by and the wind whistled a tune on the windshield, it suddenly occurred to Milo that he must have been gone for several weeks. I do hope that no one's been worried, he thought, urging the car on faster. I've never been away this long before. The late afternoon sun had turned now from a vivid yellow to a warm, lazy orange, and it seemed almost as tired as he was. The road raced ahead in a series of gentle curves that began to look familiar, and off in the distance the solitary toll booth appeared, a welcome sight indeed. In a few minutes...
Everybody. We'll see who's the first in the stream.
Heck?
Apollo and Layla and Tucker and
What the
Steven
heck?
back for another
What the heck?
A&L live stream.
My computer just randomly started playing Apollo and Leia over there. That was so weird. It's a ghost touching my computer. It wasn't even on. I guess Apollo and Leia say hello. My computer screen was completely black and it just started playing. It's so odd. Creepy. Anyway, yeah, we're on the last chapter. Whew. Country living. I don't know if you've seen the whole book, but there's previous chapters that we've read. I don't remember if you were here for all of them, but if you go back to previous live streams, they're labeled the ones that have the story if you want to read, if you want to see the rest of the story for anyone who's missed the whole thing. Oh, okay, where are we? The road raced ahead in a series of gentle curves that began to look familiar, and off in the distance the solitary toll booth appeared, a welcome sight indeed. In a few minutes he reached the end of his journey, deposited his coin, and drove through. And almost before realizing it, he was sitting in the middle of his own room again. "It's only 6 o'clock, he observed with a yawn. And then, in a moment, he made an even more interesting discovery. "And it's still today! I've been gone for only 1 hour," he cried in amazement, for he'd certainly never realized how much he could do in so short a time. Yeah, your buddy Apollo. Milo was much too tired to talk, and almost too tired for dinner, so without a murmur, he went off to bed as soon as he could. He pulled the covers up around him, took a last look at his room, which somehow seemed very different than he'd remembered, and then drifted into a deep and welcome sleep. School went very quickly the next day, but not quickly enough, for Milo's head was full of plans, and his eyes could see nothing but the toll booth and what lay beyond. He waited impatiently for the end of class, and when the time finally came, his feet raced his thoughts all the way back to the house. His feet raced his thoughts all the way back to the house. Another trip! I'll leave right away. They'll all be so glad to see me, and I'll... He stopped abruptly at the door to his room, for where the toll booth had been just the night before, there was now nothing at all. He searched frantically throughout the apartment, but it had vanished just as mysteriously as it had come, and in its place was another bright blue envelope, which was addressed simply, "For Milo, who now knows the way." He opened it quickly and read, "Dear Milo, you have now completed your trip, courtesy of the Phantom Tollbooth. We trust that everything has been satisfactory and hope you understand why we had to come and collect it. You see, there are so many other boys and girls waiting to use it too. It's true that there are many lands you've still to visit, some of which are not even on the map, and wonderful things to see that no one has yet imagined. But we're quite sure that if you really want to, you'll find a way to reach them all by yourself. Yours truly." The signature was blurred and couldn't be read. Milo walked sadly to the window and squeezed himself into one corner of the large armchair. He felt very lonely and desolate as his thoughts turned far away, to the foolish, lovable bug, to the comforting assurance of talk standing next to him, to the erratic, excitable din, to little Alec, who he hoped would someday reach the ground, to Rhyme and Reason, without whom wisdom withered, and to the many, many others he would remember always. And yet, even as he thought of all those things, he noticed somehow that the sky was a lovely shade of blue, and that one cloud had the shape of a sailing ship. The tips of the trees held pale young buds, and the leaves were a rich deep green. Outside the window, there was so much to see and hear and touch. walks to take, hills to climb, caterpillars to watch as they strolled through the garden. There were voices to hear and conversations to listen to and wonder, and the special smell of each day. And in the very room in which he sat, there were books that could take you anywhere, and things to invent and make and build, and break, and all the puzzle and excitement of everything he didn't know, music to play, songs to sing, and worlds to imagine, and then someday make real. His thoughts darted eagerly about as everything looked new and worth trying. Well, I would like to make another trip, he said, jumping to his feet. But I really don't know when I'll have the time. There's just so much to do right here. The end. That's Milo looking out his window. You hear the birdies? Yeah. They just woke up and started chirping. So if you remember at the beginning, Milo was very... Well, if you go back to the first sentence in the book is, there was once a boy named Milo who didn't know what to do with himself, not just sometimes, but always. When he was in school, he longed to be out, and when he was out, he longed to be in. On the way, he thought about coming home, and coming home, he thought about going. Wherever he was, he wished he was somewhere else. And when he got there, he wondered why he'd bothered. Nothing interested him, least of all the things that should have. So then when you get to the end, he's gone on this trip and he kind of realizes the value in everything in front of him. Throughout his trip and the people he meets and the knowledge he gains, he learns that the world is actually a beautiful place right in front of you. And there's plenty of things to do as long as you have your imagination and the people around you and the beautiful things around you. So that's how it ended. Sadly, he doesn't get to see Talk again, but maybe he gets his own dog and names it Talk. That's my headcanon for the story. So yeah, that was the end. So I hope you guys enjoyed the book. It was my favorite book as a kid and still one of my favorites to this day. I read Winchester to sleep. I read my own dog to sleep, too. I read my own doggy to sleep. The birdies were asleep, but it sounds like they just woke up. Huh, did we read our own book to doggy to sleep? Looney, do you want to meet Talk? Looney wants to hang out with Talk. Love you too, sweetie. And I love you, all of you guys. Thank you for coming. And thank you again, Country Living, for the support. It means a lot. I'm a very small channel, so I don't make a lot on YouTube, so it really does help. But yeah, we will have to pick out another book. I like these kind of like feel good kid type books. What's great about this book is it's like a kid book, but it is like also is like there's deeper levels to it that you can understand as an adult. Like there's some parts that you can't even really probably understand as much as a kid because there's a lot of like big words and stuff. So like the older you get, you actually get more out of it. But I have a few other books I've been thinking about reading to you guys. We have like White Fang we could read because I'm an animal channel. If people haven't read White Fang, that's a good one. But we also have my favorites are, do I have it over here? Ow, hit my thing. There's Julie of the Wolves and Julie. These two. And there's also a third one I have to get. There's Julie's Wolf Pack, but I would love to reread these ones because these were my other favorite books when I was a kid that I haven't read in a long time. And has anyone read these? Julie of the Wolves, and then Julie's Wolf Pack. Or just Julie, sorry. Julie's Wolf Pack, I think, is the third one. But let me know if you haven't read these ones. Well, we can read these ones. I don't want to read stuff to you guys that you've already read. I'd love to like share with you guys stuff that you haven't read. But this one has lots of puppies and stuff. Like, it just turned to the page. The puppies yapped, and Silver ran out across the tundra. She leaped with grace, her fur gleaming like metal. Then she swept into a dip in the landscape and vanished. It's all about wolves. Oh my God, yes, where the red fern grows. That have you read the book too? The book make me cry. We'll all be sobbing together. I think one of these books, I don't remember. I think the first one, I might have cried on the first one of this book towards the end. There's just a couple things, but I don't remember if it's this one or the next one. I think it's the first book. I don't think the second one's as sad. We can read the back here. Mayax, her name is Mayax. She's a little Eskimo woman. Mayax rebels against, well, that's her Eskimo name is Mayax, and then her American name is Julie. Hey, like Julie. Mayax rebels against a home situation she finds intolerable. She runs away towards San Francisco, towards her pen pal who calls her Julie. But soon Mayax is lost in the Alaskan wilderness, without food, without even a compass. Slowly she is accepted by a pack of Arctic wolves, and she comes to love them as if they were her brothers. With their help and drawing on her father's training... Sorry, getting another notification. With their help and drawing on her father's training, she struggles day by day to survive. In the process, she is forced to rethink her past and to define for herself the traditional riches of Eskimo life, intelligence, fearlessness, and love. And then the second one said, Julie's decision to return home to her people is not an easy one, but after many months in the wilderness, living in harmony with the wolves that saved her life, she knows the time has come. Julie is not prepared, however, for all the changes that she finds. Her father has forsaken many of the old Eskimo traditions. He's given up his sled dogs for a snowmobile and now looks after the musk oxen that serve as the village's income. He will do anything to protect them, even shoot any wolves that may threaten the herd. Julie knows that, like her father, she must find a way to reconcile the old ways with the new. But how can she do that without putting her beloved wolves in danger? So this one, she's out in the wilderness, and then she goes home finally and finds out that her dad is like basically hunting the wolves, which isn't good. So then she has to like kind of figure out how to protect the wolves while staying at home with her father. But if you haven't read those ones, maybe we'll read these ones next, because they're not that long. They're very small. I don't know how many chapters it is. Oh, and they have some pictures too. Not a lot, but they have some. Some pictures. It's kind of similar to Amarok the Wolf. Yeah, I'll say goodnight to you, hun. It's kind of similar to the Phantom Tollbooth, where there's like just a few pictures throughout. Is the wolf. But this one might be good because it's an animal channel. I picked books that like at least are somewhat related here. There's the caribou or the ox, the wolves chasing them. Oh, yeah. So I think I've decided this will be our next book, because I want to reread this one anyway. Mayax the girl is a little girl. Just let me know if you guys have already read it, so that I don't reread you something that you've already read. Cute Wolfie. Wolfie, that one looks like Looney. It's Looney. Looney, who's that? Is that you? Is that you, Looney? Is that you? Who's that? It looks like you. Like you. It looks like you, Looney. Looney, is that you? Is that you? MJ said, I've never read this. I'm down for it. Yeah, this is a good book. And it's I'd say a little more mature than the Phantom Tollbooth is more like fantasy adventure. This one's more like rooted in reality. And there's actually some like kind of adult themes in it, but it's still like it's like base level, so it doesn't get too inappropriate. But yeah, I'm gonna go because I'm getting sleepy now. But yeah, at least we got our next book picked out for Ari's story time. Story time with Ari. I don't know. I needed something to do tonight because the Reddit thing wasn't like, nobody was really watching it anyway. And I don't know. I was getting bored of doing the Reddit. I'll still probably do them occasionally, but I wanted more like someone to go live with me for the Reddit so that I had people to like debate it with, like share our opinions back and forth. When it's just me saying my opinion, it's like, oh, okay, that's what I think. Moving on. So if people want to go live with me and do Reddit stuff, I would do that, but I probably won't be doing them alone. But if people want to do a joint stream, we could do Reddit. If anyone wants to join me for them, just let me know, and then we could plan a joint Reddit stream. But otherwise, yeah, I'll just like to read. Exactly, yeah, I like to read better too. Butterflies game. You game to do Reddit with me? Because that would be fun. Especially since me and you have a lot of differing opinions on stuff, I think. It's cool when people don't agree and when they have different opinions. Oh, nice. Okay, so that'll be cool. That'll give me and you something to go live together for. I would like that. Yeah, we're all tired. We're all getting ready for bed. I'm having an orange. I don't know why I couldn't stop yawning. I think it was just from shoveling. My lungs were like messed up. I'm gonna go shut the light outside. But yeah, thank you all for coming. So we're gonna definitely make the books, I think, a regular series because I'm a big reader and I love to read. So I don't mind reading to you guys. So books are a regular series now, and the Reddit can be like occasionally. Me and Butterfly can try to get something going. So I love you all and have a good night. I'm gonna go say goodnight to Christine because I know she wants a hug. I just had to go shut that light out there. All right, I love you all. Sleep tight. MJ said, I like to listen to audiobooks, so I like you reading. It just has to be a book I'd be interested in. Yeah, that's why I'm trying to like pull up books to see if it's something you guys would like. I'm like, let me know, one, if you haven't read it before, and two, if I was like reading the back to see if it's something you guys might like. So let me know. There's also Bambi that I want to read to you guys, but I can't find my copy of it. But Bambi, the book, is like way better than the movie. So as soon as I find my copy of that, maybe we could read it, but I don't know where it is. But yes, good night, everybody. Good night from the animals. I don't know where. Oh, that's Stratty. Stratty wanted to say good night. Yeah, there is a library near me. Surprisingly, Bambi the novel is kind of hard to find. It's by Felix Salten. He's like an old, I think, German or Hungarian. It's written in like the 1800s. Surprisingly, the book, the actual, not like the kids book, like they make like kids Disney books. It's not that. It's like the original novel. Like they have like Bambi kids books that are like Bambi, like Disney, whatever, like picture books, but it's like the actual novel. Hey, Stratty. Yeah, it's based off a full novel. Yeah, Stratty. It's called Bambi, A Life in the Woods. Or something like that. Let me see. Or Life in the Forest, something. Bambi, Felix Salten. It's by Felix Salten. A Life in the Woods. Oh, it was 1929, not the 1800s, but Bambi, A Life in the Woods. Austrian. I was like, thought it was German or something. 1923, Austrian coming-of-age novel by Felix Salten that follows a roe deer from birth to adulthood, focusing on his survival in the harsh forest environment, the loss of his mother, and the constant threat of human hunters known as he. I think in the movie they call it man, just man, but in the book they call it he. The book is a realistic and often dark tale, contrasting sharply with the Disney adaptation. Yeah, it's like much different than Disney. I mean, Disney has some dark moments, but the book is like even more intense. Contrasting sharply with the Disney adaptation is considered a parable about the dangers and, ooh, I didn't know this. It's considered a parable about the dangers and persecution faced by Jews in Europe. I did not know that. Because it was written in Austria in the 1920s. Theme: survival, the cycle of life and death, the relationship between humans and nature, and the dangers of persecution, often interpreted as an allegory for the persecution of Jews. I did not know that. I did not know that Bambi was like an allegory for the Holocaust. Ooh, that would be cool. I haven't read that one. That's one I haven't read. Bambi's a Jewish deer. I guess so. Have you read The Jungle Book? I didn't know. That's one I didn't know there was a full-length novel. Actually, no, I did know there was a full-length novel. I just haven't read it. I have heard of the full-length one. Let's look that up. The Jungle Book. I can order a couple of these books. The Jungle Book. I need the book, not the novel. I need the novel. When was it written? Yeah, Rudyard Kipling. That one was the 1800s. Maybe that's the ones I was crossing. 1894. Collection of allegorical fables set in the Indian jungle, famous for the stories of Mowgli. Oh, I read Rikki Tikki Tavi when I was a kid. I didn't realize that the Jungle Book was, it's like fables. It was like different stories. I didn't realize it was a collection of stories. We always just think of the Mowgli one, but I did read Rikki Tikki Tavi. It said famous for the stories of Mowgli, a boy raised by wolves, and other tales like Rikki Tikki Tavi and Tumai of the elephants. The book uses anthropomorphic animals to teach moral lessons, exploring themes of law, freedom, and belonging through characters like Wise Bear Baloo. I also have Animal Farm. That's an interesting one. We could read that. But we all probably read that in school. Well, if you went to school, you read Animal Farm. I didn't really like that one that much, though. I like these ones better. Maybe because it's pigs. Animal Farm is like pigs that, like, take over and they, like, start eating the humans, basically. Yeah, we're all going to bed. All right, good night, everybody. We didn't read Animal Farm. I think we read both, but I didn't read most of Lord of the Flies. I kind of wasn't doing well in school at that point, so I didn't finish it. We read both in different grades. But I think I still have Animal Farm somewhere. Let me just see if I have Animal Farm, then I'll leave. Yep, I do. Animal Farm. George Orwell. This one says, a farm is taken over. A farm is taken over by its overworked, mistreated animals. With flaming idealism and stirring slogans, they set out to create a paradise of progress, justice, and equality. Thus, the stage is set for one of the most telling satiric fables ever penned, a razor-edged fairy tale for grown-ups that records the evolution from revolution against tyranny to a totalitarianism just as terrible. When Animal Farm was first published 50 years ago, probably more now, Stalinist Russia was seen as its target. Today, it is devastatingly clear that wherever and whenever freedom is attacked, under whatever banner, the cutting clarity and savage comedy of George Orwell's masterpiece has a meaning and message still ferociously fresh. There's also Black Beauty. That's another one of my favorites I used to read when I was young. This one's sad. This one will have you crying too. Through the eyes of Black Beauty, we observe the actions of human beings. The gallant horse is sold to many types of people. Some are good masters who treat Beauty with compassion and tenderness. Others are bad masters who do not care if Beauty has enough food to eat or is too tired to be ridden. Written in the 19th century, Anne Sewell's Black Beauty succeeded in alerting many people to the cruel treatment of horses. This classic remains one of the most popular animal stories ever written. Yeah, I love Black Beauty. I know because you said you wanted a private goodnight, and then I know that you usually want a hug goodnight, so you always like a hug goodnight. How would I not know? She thinks I'm like a mind reader, but she's so obvious. Christine, you're the most obvious person ever. You're very routine. You're very routine. You always want to hug goodnight. Not like she thinks I'm like a psychic. It's kind of funny. Yeah, I'm a wizard. I'm a psychic. I'm not like Butterfly. Butterfly's the psychic. I just am good at reading people who are very obvious. But yeah, we have I'm putting a case on you. I had to take it out of my case to put it on the other tripod because this tripod here, the phone tripod, doesn't fit. This one doesn't fit on there. It's too small. It doesn't open up wide enough to fit it with the case on. But that one's easier when I'm on my phone or whatever, when I'm reading with the light. When I have the light on, it's easier to just have the phone on that. Yep, good night. So we have a few books picked out that we can read. We'll do Julie and then maybe Black Beauty at some point. And then I gotta find my Bambi and the Jungle Book. Maybe I can go to my library. They'll probably have the Jungle Book. I just don't know about Bambi because I've looked for Bambi before. Even to buy it, you can't find it in bookstores. It's kind of weird how non-available it is. That's why I said I don't think a lot of people even realize that it is a novel because it's no, you never see it anywhere. Yeah, I love you guys. I'll see you. Good night. Thank you for coming by and reading with me. Mwah. Hugs. Sleep well. Thank you for having story time with me. Bye.